So welcome to this panel discussion, and I think the idea here is to discuss how the digital journey involves primarily, and I would say much more important than previously conceived of, the user experience. And the digital journey of a customer is greatly defined by how good the user experience is. So I'm going to start with the introduction about myself and what I do, and then pass the baton on to each of my distinguished panelists. And then we'll try to stitch a story around how the digital journey can be improved, what we are seeing on the ground, what are some of the use cases that we personally know of, and how we can use that as a learning curve for everybody here. I will throw the session open for questions, and I would like, in fact, we would love for you to ask more questions so that there's more learning and more interactivity out of this. So a little bit about myself. My name is Gautam Balakrishnan. I work for a group called the Tata Administrative Service, TAS. And no, I'm not going to comment on whether I'm going to be the next group chairman in 4 months. Mr. Tata and I promised that we won't talk about it in public. So my job is to basically head the smart cities business. As you know, the smart cities business is tremendously important right now. Our Prime Minister believes greatly in that vision. And he also believes in withdrawing 500 and 1,000 rupee notes without telling anyone. Thank you. I was stranded because of that. But the whole point is that we believe that urbanization can be a lot less painful and can be a lot more rewarding for everybody if the journey is curated properly. And that journey can be curated properly by a combination of two things. One is technology, and the other is inclusion. Technology comes into play because to make anything smarter or more livable, you have to be able to make the walls between the various things we do go away. So let me take an example of something that started, a journey that started 5-6 years ago and is going to transform our life. It's a very, very simple name. It's called Aadhaar. Aadhaar will turn out to be the most important journey in post-independence India compared to any other. Because for the first time, 1.2 billion people are now uniquely identifiable. More importantly, they are biometrically identifiable, which means an illiterate person, a person who has no other redress, can still claim his rightful subsidy, can still claim directly into a Jan Dhan account the money that's due to him. In fact, with just a small pilot program, I read somewhere that the government of India saved 3,800 crores in just a pilot project where they made sure that the direct financial benefit went straight to the Jan Dhan account instead of being claimed through government officials. This is just one part. The other part that comes to mind is 110,000 fake employees were found to exist, who never existed and who were collecting pension. They were all purged from the system. What is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is you and my tax-paying money gets utilized for something more important, gets utilized for something more beneficial for the country. So basis Aadhaar, the smart city journey which has begun, has taken away the problem of inclusion, and that links, because of people like this who are on the dais today and the use of their innovative technology, that has linked to making cities more livable. How does a city become more livable as a result of technology? It's very simple. If you take some of the projects that I am aware of, one of the most intelligent ones is the use of satellite pictures to prevent encroachment. This is very, very simple to do. You have your IRS-1B, IRS-1C satellites which are constantly orbiting the country. They are taking very high resolution pictures all of the time. The problem is no human being can actually look at two pictures and identify them, but analytics can. You have robots, botware, which can read two pictures side by side taken, let's say 4 hours apart, and tell you that one shanty has come up, one tent has come up. That tent ought not to be there. And cities like Lucknow, states like MP are finding that if you pull down that one unauthorized shanty, a colony cannot form. And if a colony cannot form, a vote bank cannot form. And if a vote bank cannot form, that unauthorized construction cannot get regularized. As a result, you and I will still have roads to drive on, still have parks to play on, and still have a more livable city to live in. It's very, very simple. It existed all of the time. What did not exist was very large data crunching capability. What did not exist was very large compute and store capability. What did not exist was computers that would do the job for us. The digital journey has not only begun, it's well on its way. And what's interesting is it benefits a poor country like India, a poor country like Indonesia, and a poor country like Bangladesh much more then it benefits a rich nation. So all of us sitting in this room today can be proud of the fact that in some small way, we are not only enabling that journey, but we are also benefiting from that journey. Because we are taxpayers, we are residents of Indian cities, and we have every right to have a more livable city for ourselves and for our generations to come. So with this introduction, I'm going to throw the panel open, my distinguished guests, and I would request everyone to just go maybe in this order and introduce themselves and say a few words.
So thanks, Gautam. I thought when he mentioned that what makes a city livable, I was thinking about Google Maps. So going from one place to another with traffic knowledge, that definitely in a city like Mumbai makes it very livable. So you know you're going to get late or early. But yeah, I agree to your point. And but for a common citizen, maybe it's Google Maps much more important than some of the other things, encroachments and all. But of course, it helps us. So my name is Lalit, and I work for ICICI Prudential Asset Management Company. Our product is such that you don't wake up in the morning, unlike if you lose a mobile phone, you wake up in the morning and say, no, I have to buy it today. Or, you know, you go to a hospital and say, oh, this guy had to pay some 5 lakh rupees and thank God he had an health insurance. So I have to renew my health insurance or buy a new one. Our product, mutual fund, is such that you don't wake up in the morning and say, today I will buy mutual fund. And of course, it's very unexciting because you cannot talk to your friends that, you know, I identified this stock which became multi-bagger and, you know, I am a great fund manager myself. It's a very simple product, invest money, think long term and go about it. So it presents its own set of challenges. So now first to get customer on the website, then from the website to get him into transaction mode and from transaction help him invest. So it's a very difficult journey. Dropout rates, as you can think, are very much more, very high in comparison to other products. But that's the way it is. And many of my business colleagues or senior management would feel, okay, so what's a great deal about it? It's just a website. Just put any product and you're done. You'll show something and customer anyway knows it, so he'll buy. Well, I can just tell you that it's not so simple. It's not about the product. I think it's more about the entire environment that you create. Of course, now we started giving fancy name to it called customer experience, customer journey, and UX and UI. But at the heart of it is most common sense. And you say, okay, so you get certain types of customers coming to you, and each customer behaves very differently. So a youngster coming wants to invest, want to see returns and say, whichever gives you the best return, I want to invest. While a middle-aged person will come and say, okay, how it's done before, how it will do forward, let me research what investment. While a senior person may take much more time only investigating about the product, the fund manager, the company, and then invest. So different people, you give them what they want. So first you have to identify who they are. So that, of course, technology plays a big role. And then depending on what they are, you show them the relevant information. And if you show them the relevant information, and keep dangling carrots, invest now. Invest immediately. This is very important. So some of them get enticed by it and click on that. And then they find, yes, they have to give money. So then they say, okay, I don't want to give money now, I'll give it tomorrow. But it's a challenge that you overcome again by saying, okay, if you do now, it's better, market is stable, it will go up, you'll make more money, things like that. So that's how mutual fund is all about. And we've been a Sitefinity customer from 2007, where now it's progress, obviously. So we've been one of the early adopters of the technology, and we are very happy to see the technology platform evolving to meet the new demands. So now you have online understanding of the customer, identification of customer, taking it in the cloud, doing some real-time analytics, giving the right information, stuff like that. And we are happy to note and implement many of these things, thankfully, with our content management system. And yes, we'll say we were smart to pick up such a good content management system at a very reasonable price.
Thank you so much, Lalit.
Thanks, Lalit. I'm Akshay. I'm part of the e-commerce team at ICICI Lombard. We started our journey in e-commerce way back in 2005. So we are one of the early adopters of the digital channel in the insurance sector. And when we started the journey, we were, I think basic, the UI UX, like Lalit said, right, we were not aware of it. Just put up a website, and most of the transactions that were happening on the website were renewal transactions, right? And slowly we moved and we started focusing on digital marketing, getting new customers on board, and completely engineering most of the processes. So because when you, in terms of the number of fields that you have to actually enter when you want to buy a new policy, because we are highly regulated, is as high as 100 fields when you're buying a car insurance. So how do you re-engineer your processor? How do you have third-party integrations to get some of these inputs on the fly? So just to give you an example, the way Soumitra mentioned in the morning when you're showing a new website, right? There are certain science that went behind it, right? There was a lot of drop-offs we are seeing when customers actually came into the product pages of, let's say, car insurance, and they saw that they had to input 5 fields to get a quote. So how do you reduce this? So then we realized that there are people in the market who have access to the RTO data, where so by providing one unique field, you could get the entire detail of the car, not the customer detail, but the detail of the asset, which actually simplified the entire quote process, right? So now instead of giving your make, model, and the date of registration, and some of the people did not actually remember the date of registration. They had to go back to look for the certificate which was in the car and then get it and all those things. So we then started showing 3 options instead of 1 option, and the reason behind this was that we, as a company, don't work with any of the aggregators, right? And we wanted customers to have multiple options from our company so that he doesn't move away from the platform by just seeing 1 option. And in terms of process re-engineering, we have even gone ahead and taken a lot of customer feedbacks and gone back and put it into product development. So in terms of, just to give an example, a lot of our customers were, talking about that in terms of two-wheelers, the biggest problem is, hassle is to renew it every year, right? No one comes and reminds me because the intermediary is not interested much because his commissions are very, very low, the ticket size is low. So this as an input we took, and we went back and designed a product which was, you could buy it for a 2-year or a 3-year instead of a 1 year, right? And it was instant hit on the online platform. Currently, we see 40% of people who buy two-wheeler insurance on the platform opt for the 2 or the 3-year option. Because paying the money upfront is not an issue. It is more of ensuring that the coverage is there for a longer duration. So these are a lot of solutions that we came up with. And with Sitefinity, the advantages that we saw, we recently moved to Sitefinity, was that the agility which was there, which has come in now. So we can do changes on the fly. We can change content, in terms of any regulatory changes which are required immediately, and we don't have to, raise a change request, go back to our vendor, wait for a period of, a couple of days to get it up and running. So that is the advantages that we saw, and in terms of cost, actually we saw that the cost, when you compare it to the kind of benefits that you have, was much, much lower in terms of getting the whole thing going. So that was one of the reasons that we moved to Sitefinity as a CMS for us. Thanks.
Great. All yours, Madam Microsoft.
Hi, my name is Mukta. I come from the Azure and Developer Experience group at Microsoft. I'm going to talk about Azure. I'm pretty sure you all already know about the benefits of moving on to cloud. I'm not going to go there. But what all are these services? And as Lalit and Akshay have already, mentioned about analytics and other services like DevOps, wherein he said it took less time to turn around the resulting product. So we have many services out there, some 60 plus services onto Azure. It's again, as I said, you have analytics, you have telemetry. As Lalit said, it's okay to go back to the customer and tell them this is what you were looking at. This is the mutual fund you were looking at, and now we want you to buy. So how do you do that? You do that with the monitoring of the application. It could be on the app level, could be on the mobile app level with Hockey app and mobile DevOps. So that is the footprint that customer is leaving for you, right? So be on the cloud, and then how do you get the value to the end customer plus value to your own business is what Microsoft Azure is all about as of now. Plus, there are many things which, like you have trials, accounts set up, and it's so very easy to get onto the cloud services or the linked or integrated services with that you really don't have to take time and set up an entire environment or maybe a DC out there. So again, I would stress upon Azure and lot many IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS offerings. So that is again that we have an edge, I won't say upon the competitors, but then yes, we have lot many offerings out there, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, which are categorized. So what you can see is, what you can see out there in, IaaS is something wherein if you want to move your data centers towards VMs and storage and network onto cloud, and then PaaS, you would already know, platform as a service. So web apps, mobile apps, and all of those app services onto Azure would cover that. And then SaaS offering is Office 365, and you can connect with other integration services as well, like BizTalk and all. So that would be Azure for you. We can have more discussion onto that while we go on.
Fantastic. Thank you. Abhishek.
All right. So thank you so much, everybody. I am Abhishek. For those of you who have been hanging around since morning, didn't take the shortcut from lunch. You heard me in the morning for an hour, so I don't have to speak much. But one of the things I just want to mention, because this was also a big eye-opener for me. Now, we're talking a lot about customer engagement, customer experience, and Lalit has already talked about it. Existed before. We have it, the renewed, I would say, rigor around it, the renewed interest around it, and the knowledge that the benefits, or knowledge and the benefits that user experience brings about. But the one that I'm trying to tell you, or the story that I'm going to tell you, is more about productivity, which means an organization, an automobile organization, they're trying to set up their HR appraisal system. Now, this organization, when I went to them, they had HR appraisal system, and their IT team had said it'll take about 6 months to stabilize the system. It's not that they did not have a system. They had a very industry standard system running in their organization for a long time. It wasn't that. It was just that people, all of them, were logging into the system on the last day of appraisal, which is what we all do pretty much. It's something that we have to dispense with very quickly, that the system would crash. And it would crash in such a way that nobody really could access it at that time. So really it had to be, one, somehow the effort had to be made so that people walk into the appraisal process a little early, or at least the load was distributed. And secondly, it had to be built or rebuilt so that while the data goes back into the system, they didn't have to use it, because again, the usage of that system required it to have Java version 6.2.9. Whatever number that is, and then everybody's anyway getting upgraded on Java, and half of them are running on their machine, which is 50 years old. It's a manufacturing organization, right? And then some of them are on the field, so they really don't have access to it. But on the last day, they also want to fill that appraisal up. That was the situation we were in. Now, why this is very inspiring for me is when I went into this organization and showed them the no-code application development platform, which Dr. Ganesh earlier in the day had showcased, which we call as Rolebase. With that, we were able to do a POC in 2 days. And it was, I was wowed, and like, we can finish it in 2 days, really. And this was a very early beta of what was to become their HR appraisal system. In about 2 days, when we were able to show them what had to be built, they just took the system as is, and then the BAs got to work on it, and the whole system was over in a month. So the system that was otherwise supposed to be done in 6 months, and IT was really, really reluctant to even touch it because they had the other production systems to run, they were able to finish it in 1 month. So while everybody has talked about customer engagement, and no doubt that is crucial and critical, also what is also very important is productivity of the people in the IT department and the agility that they can provide to the business for servicing, in this case it was HR, but servicing maybe the partner network. In fact, another very large automotive company in the world is implementing, based on the same solution, implementing a partner system which is implemented in all their subsidiaries, in all their retail outlets. All that information is gathered. So I think alongside engagement, we also have to see how productive we are as we are doing it. And the one final thing that I would also like to mention is the speed at which innovation is happening. There has to be a way where this is done free from the shackles of IT, where business can take control, finish the job, and the experiments that they set up can actually be translated back into the IT if it succeeds, and if it does not, we should fail fast so that, you know, we move on to the next experiment. Because now I think everybody does realize that without experiments, we don't know what's going to hit. It's ultimately consumer behavior and nobody knows what it is. So with that, I will, you know, take it back to you, Gautam.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. That was very, very, I think everybody had very good ideas and everybody's given us very insightful feedback. The only difference in my business compared to theirs is I don't have a customer. At least I don't have a willing customer. I have a resident or a citizen of this country. And sometimes some of the e-governance applications I want to send him are without his, shall we say, compliance. Let me give you an example. Income tax, right? Everybody hates paying income tax. It's a fact. Now, and we have a very low taxpayer base. So we are trying to bring that up. So the government came up with this idea where your Jan Dhan account gets mapped to your PAN card, right? So that's a starting point. Any transaction you do above 50,000 rupees, 2 lakh rupees gets flagged to your Aadhaar. Therefore, we now know who you are, and then we can start, you know, making an analytic map of what is it that you do. So for example, if you choose not to pay tax, but you fly first class on Emirates to London, that's a red flag right there. So how do these two behaviors correlate? Unfortunately, the user experience of an unwilling customer is very different from a user experience of someone who's trying to buy a mutual fund or buying an insurance and who's there because he wants to interact with you to begin with. So the government's challenge has been, how do you design applications which will run on the simplest of operating systems, non-smartphone based, challenge number 1. Incorporate people who are illiterate, challenge number 2. Incorporate people who speak, I don't know, little over 50,000 languages in this country, I think, at last count, who speak 50,000 different languages, some of which, by the way, have no script. So Konkani has no script, right? So here's a challenge. Then be able to provide real-time online customer care. So I'll give you an example of that also. And then get somebody who's not trying to actively duck the system. So catch somebody who's violating the law either on the road through repeated rash driving or repeated red light jumping or other behavior. So one example I can give you where the user experience was very crucial is the government of Madhya Pradesh and the government of UP have something called an integrated dial 100. So this is where your 100 emergency response number is real-time integrated to fire, ambulance, police and various other agencies. The use case here was in the event of an accident or in the event of an attack or in the event of any violent scenario, especially violence against women, we have to be able to reach that person, help that person in real time, right? And one of the biggest problems in this particular interaction was actually domestic violence. Domestic violence is, as you know, between people who are related typically by marriage. Need not be by marriage, by the way. So father to son, son to daughter is also domestic violence. The problem with domestic violence was the lady very often when she managed to reach the phone and dialed 100, very often she couldn't stay on the line because the phone was snatched away from her, thrown on the ground, etc. But the difference was using Aadhaar, especially when the geolocation of that phone was in her home, the emergency services were able to call the husband back on his line. So you're in the middle of this domestic violence incident and suddenly your phone rings, not her phone, your phone, right? And typically what we found, and thank God for that, is that they answered their phone. So such is the behavior in India that people reach for the phone all of the time, right? Even I was checking my phone sitting here when I shouldn't be. The point was, the guy would answer the phone. That stopped the attack, right? That stopped the attack, at least for that timing. And then that emergency person could speak to that person and say, we know what's going on, we can hear on the other phone, you better stop right now, police is on the way, ambulance is on the way. And by their estimate, MP got 35,000 such calls a day. A day. That's a staggering number. So the UI UX there is not some beautiful heuristic diagram or some beautiful, attractive, you know, I love ICICI Lombard's colors. I love that orange and saffron. Those colors are very, very beautiful. But this is just getting the job done. This is UI UX to save someone's life, right? So our challenge is in the UI UX domain. how to keep it very, very light, how to keep it manipulatable by the simplest of people, and how to be able to translate it in real time into multiple languages with people who might not be willing to cooperate with you, right? This is a whole new 4-dimensional sort of space. And the beauty of it is somehow with the support of people who've done policing in the length and breadth of this country, people who've helped people in the length and breadth of this country, we found a way to make it work. So when we talk UI UX, and I'd like my distinguished panel to come in here because a lot of the stuff you talked about is actually relevant here. So can you somehow enrich our learning on how a UI UX can be improved in a non-design or a non-technology sense, such that it starts to work for the poorest and the most or least able of us? Anyone, please.
All right, so it's a tough question, but the one that the field of study in UX does have an answer to. And the field of study of UX does not start from the UI. It starts from what is your behavior when you approach a system. Instead of doing a particular activity in 2 steps, in 6 steps, in 5 steps, how easy are you able to reach into a particular activity and complete an activity? When we do mobile app design, and something that we all do from time to time, the effort is in making sure that to accomplish an activity, this is the number of steps that are required to finish that activity. So that is very key. So it is irrespective. It does not mean that it is only for the UI. It also means it could be on the phone, it could be when you're sending an SMS, and it could be when you're sending the WhatsApp message, or whatever it is, whatever you're comfortable with. There is a question of demography in terms of who is more comfortable ringing a phone versus who's more comfortable typing it out on the phone device very, very quickly, because that's what they keep doing all the time. I have a niece who has an iPod, and all you can hear her do, because she was not allowed a phone, she had this WhatsApp on iPod, and pretty much she was fine. She was like, yep, happening. Snapchat, just fine. We are not in that space, but demography has a place to think about, and I think everybody agrees in that. The final thing in the UX and how to improve it, not just from the perspective of this piece, is the heuristics of your behavior itself. As you correctly said, some of the data points that we already have could be geolocation, could be, there is something that the call is less than 2 seconds, or call is less than 3 seconds, or call is less than 5 seconds. So if we can relate different behaviors, and they don't mean web behaviors, it could be any behavior, feed it into a heuristic system like a machine learning system, over a period of time, these behaviors will get very simply defined, which means we know that out of all the missed calls that we get at 100, arising from a geolocation which is part A or a district A of a city, we pretty much need to get there, because out of all the calls that we've received till about now, 80% of it pretty much is a DV system. So pretty much, there was a movie quite some time ago. Who was the gentleman? What was that movie where they had the precogs and stuff like that happening? Minority Report, but not quite in that sense, but anticipating that, an activity is happening based on the evidence that you have available. That could be one. And finally, the very, very simple piece is multilingual, wherein you have to go local, wherein the person is able to speak to you in the language, or at least have an option of answering not in English or in Marathi. And at that, when you pick the call and make that conversation, the system at the back should be able to understand both the languages, or at least the languages that are regional, which means you do have to speak English, or you do have to speak Hindi, or you do have to speak Marathi, either of the three. And in whatever language you blurt out, it should just work. So not just from the web, but even from voice recognition, from machine learning perspective. And the good thing is machine learning has become commoditized now. So irrespective of the industry we are in, it is commoditized, which means you can pretty much get going with it.
Lalit.
Yeah, I have a different take on it because it's actually called an out-of-syllabus question. For a person who, we think customer as a paying customer, to an area where I think if I'm getting hit by someone, I really don't care which color of mobile app it shows, whether it's orange or white or blue or whatever color.
Right.
As long as it works. I mean, I press a button if there is a button, and the police comes or calls or ambulance comes or calls, and I don't get beaten up anymore. So it has to work. I think more than UI, UX in that area is more the process, the entire process that has to work.
Yeah, the function.
Beautifying it is, I think, not the objective at all. But yes, some analytics which Abhishek has thrown would be a start. But if you really ask me, I think it just needs to work.
Sure.
I mean, you call 911 in US, it comes. You call 100, I want the police guy to be at my place. I call 108, the ambulance has to be there. As long as that happens, I really don't care if I'm calling 100 via the old phone also. If some of you remember, it takes a lot of time, or mobile phone or landline, it really doesn't matter.
Sure.
So I would like to answer that with an example or an initiative that we have taken. So, similar to the TransSmart that was shown, so what had happened is we are seeing that for a couple of our clients, right, in the marine insurance, which is basically the transport, the cargo insurance which is there were a lot of incidences of, theft happening where the vehicle was suddenly ambushed and, the stuff were taken, and the response time was very, very important, because in the more delay in the response time, the recovery chances of getting the stuff was nil, right? So we then went ahead and we could have, the first option for us was that we go back to the client and say that next time if you want to insure this cargo, the rates go up, or we don't insure the cargo, right? So that was one option, but we co-created and we sat across, we gave it a thought, and we said that why can't we track the movement of the cargo? So we came up with geofence for the truck, saying that it is moving from A location to B location, this is the route it has to take, these are the predetermined stops, and the control room was set up, and it actually used to track if the truck has not stopped at those given locations, which are predefined, let's say for petrol refueling or for lunch or dinner or whatever. And if and immediately if it didn't stop there, it stopped somewhere else, then there was a trigger that went on to the nearest police station, because of which one thing is that the incidence rate also went up, because when people realized that these are the vehicles which are being tracked and all those things, the people did not attack them. Second was, even if one-off incident happened, we immediately got a trigger, so we didn't have to wait for the driver to contact us and tell us that this happened. So we could immediately reach those locations, and we could ensure that the loss was minimalistic in nature.
Fantastic. Mukta, did you have a point there?
So I'm going to expand on to what Abhishek said. I think the UI and UX part is not that important as per Lalit as well. But then what we can do is we can take the activities. There should be less UI in the scenario where the customer is not that willing, the end customer. So we can have less UI and more activity at the back end going on. So it's like if you're calling, or there could be chatbots, serverless computing, there could be a trigger. Let's say there's a chatbot listening to what the person is saying. If they say just one word, trouble, then there should be a trigger out there for the chatbot to go ahead, and then a function out there can send you an ambulance, or with police or maybe a volunteer to help you out at the location where your phone or your device was last found. So something of that sort, because I would think the willing customers are there to fill up your forms and take care of and look into the UI, but then the customers who are just out there for the necessity of that point in time are more or less concerned with the behavior that the app functionality that the app is providing, app or software.
Yep, perfect. Another interesting use case that came back again from public safety standpoint, which is becoming very important now, is there is this huge prevalence of stalking in India, where young men stalk young women. And unfortunately, our movies portray that persistence pays, right? So the hero stalks the lady and she says no, but through 45 minutes of the film, she finally turns around and says yes. So this seems to send a message to some people that all you got to do is try X or Y number of times, and then you will break that barrier down. So since we can't change the Bollywood industry or get film actors to be more responsible, decided to try technology. So now there is an app which has come out where the ladies are encouraged to simply take a picture of their stalker. even if it's not a genuine case, even if it's a harassment on the other way around, that comes onto a portal and the police use a deep face kind of software to try and identify that person. Because typically here you sometimes have the mobile number, sometimes you don't. They call from multiple numbers, they stalk from multiple devices, so it's harder to do. But then the police in India are so good that they eventually get the guy in about 2 days' time. That's been actually Delhi Police's track record. And what then happens is a very nice phone conversation happens between what is called a thanedar, the station house officer, and the young man concerned. And he's convincingly persuaded not to follow that lady. Because what now happened is, from being a random stalking act, the guy is now on guard that he is known, his identity is known, and if anything happens to that young lady, he is going to be definitely caught, right? This kind of thing could have saved that lady in Chennai who was brutally murdered in the platform. And this could have been a useful tool in that kind of a scenario. So again, the challenge really was that in actual field trials with actual people, they found that the minute the stalker saw that she had taken a picture of her, he tended to attack immediately. So immediately he tended to attack and remove the phone because he knew that he was possibly going to be in trouble. So the police wanted a way for the lady concerned to be able to discreetly take a picture and from any angle for that person's identity to be captured. So here's where your point about, Lalit, about it just having to work came in. You know, forget the UI, forget the UX. All you needed was something. So the phone companies decided to try this out. So they are now working on one long press key, typically the key 5, which will open both the cameras and then record the pictures and video for a certain length of time. So in that span, all she has to do is move her phone around, you know, discreetly, even take it to her ear and turn away, and that camera will record, or this camera will record. And then in that app, the analytics will discard everything else and then find this one person. So this trial, honestly, Delhi Police has a lot of confidence on. This can significantly reduce crimes against women. And the possible offshoot of that is even I would like in my daily life to have apps that are that simple to use. I mean, just today when I was trying to do WhatsApp, it opens out to the last conversation that I had. No, I'd rather it opened out to just my inbox, right? Similarly, if I've selected Abhishek Kant, I was actually trying to send you a message. When I opened it to send Anindo a message, it actually had your window open. So very often I type inappropriate messages to other people who ought not to be receiving them because the last window was open, right? So this is a UI UX problem for somebody like me. So I'd like anyone here to give us thoughts on how we can come up with a generic framework to improve user experience across all applications. See, that's why I get this job. I don't have to come up with any solutions. I just come up with problems.
See, I think there is no generic solution possible because the entire UX, UI journey and design depends on the objective of whatever you intend to do. So you could have some elements of it common across various platforms and apps and usage. But to really say that we could have a master load and only one book saying everything is there, in my mind, it just won't work.
I think I agree with what Lalita said. It depends on the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So let's say if you're trying to sell, it has to have those colors, you know, it has to look beautiful and all those things. But if you're trying to just make the functionality be there and it has to be, you know, the time is of utmost important, then it just has to be a solution which works and which is 100% accurate and, you know, delivers what it has to deliver in a very, very quick time frame.
Okay, since I come from development background, I tend to think every problem has a technical solution. So what I'm thinking here is you can have something like, you know, wherein you can check the efficiency of the UI later on once you have developed it. So you can see whether your UX elements are actually mapping in the most efficient way with the model data that you have, the data objects. That could be one way to go about it. There could be other ways as well, whether it is, you know, the most linguistic or localized option for the region of the people that you are, you know, talking about. So there could be 2-3 main points that you can choose about your framework and construct it around those points. and maybe, you can check your apps later on against those points, maybe make it selectable, configurable sort of thing.
Great.
So I will again repeat myself about UI and UX. It's not just the visible part of it, as I said, it's also the invisible part of it. And to simplify takes more effort than to complicate,
Yes.
right? So once we have spent enough time, we will arrive at a simplification of the process, be it adding an option, adding 3 options. We have talked, Ganesh in the morning talked about adding not 1 payment option, but 3 payment options, COD. Now obviously has to go out, Ganesh. Given all that scenarios, the framework that we talked about, there is one again, and I'll go back to the UX world. And that again says nothing is true till it is experimented and validated. So the only framework I can think of in the context is experimentation. So whatever you do, you experiment, because whatever we say the consumer behavior is just something that is not predictable, simple. The complex of things I can think of putting up for the customers do not work. And the simplistic of things that I think will work, works. So the only thing that works is experimentation. And in experimentation, fail fast. But I think in this scenario, we have a lot of people from the community as well. Even they may have some opinions that, can be shared about. So
Sure.
maybe it's time.
In fact, I was about to throw the floor open unless...
Yeah, just, Gautam, that was a nice try to get some answers from the question I'm sure your boss has asked you.
Yes.
And that also for free. But coming to generic, I would still say on a lighter note, one generic rule you can follow. If it's English, it's left to right, and Arabic right to left, for sure.
And I had just one last thought which actually I'd planned to ask you guys because you're the experts. Where do you see the role of digital assistants like Siri in simplifying app usage? Will there come a time I can long press iPhone and say, buy ICICI Prudential and input it in my account?
See, voice activation work is already at various stages of POC, I think. But Indian dialect, Indian voice modalities and all, that is a bit of a complex right now. But yes, I am pretty sure that in a few coming months, you will have scenarios where you could do a lot of work using voice. I think a lot of investment is done by Microsoft on Cortana, for example, on Apple on Siri, and Google, of course, on its Google Voice. And there are a lot of, at least I know personally, a lot of places where this is getting experimented. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see how it comes up. But yes, there's a high level of interest there to get voice-activated information, transactions, maybe activities, things like that.
So I think in terms of Siri and all that, a couple of years before it would have been difficult. Now with the kind of third-party integration that are available, for at least from the insurance point of view, the number of data fields can be easily filled. So let's say with the RTO registration that I spoke about, so let's say 6-7 fields can be taken care of, and with the Aadhaar integration that is available, you can actually get the remaining fields going, right? And then what's left is payment, and that also they will have solutions for that. So I think in a year or a year and a half, you can find insurance being bought through Siri.
Great.
I think as the bot framework grows, you'll see more and more voice bot libraries coming in, and then you probably will see more digitization through Siri or Cortana, because we tend to consume more. So there are APIs, so you tend to open the endpoints and people tend to consume those. So till the point we'll see Siri or Cortana to be the personal assistants more or less. And once we have more people going on and adding stuff to the let's say marketplace or the libraries, then you'll start seeing more and more stuff coming towards the voice assistants.
Fantastic. Abhishek, did you have a comment there, or shall I open the floor?
No, it's just not a comment. I just probably again want to say that different companies, including Apple, Microsoft, IBM, everybody is attempting to incorporate in the Indian accent, because that does constitute a large portion of the population. In fact, I was involved with the first effort by Microsoft where we had seeded phones wherein we had to get the Indian accent or the Indian English going with scripts and all. So from there to now, where we are talking about almost 95, 96% speech recognition capability or efficiency, it is moving forward. And not just English, it has to be multilingual once again.
Yes.
It has to be Hindi, it has to be at least our major official, I think 21, I don't know how many numbers of those, 21 official languages. At least those have to be supported, and it is not Microsoft who's going to do it. It's not IBM who's going to do it. It's not Apple who's going to do it, unfortunately. It is simple market dynamics. There isn't enough market here to do anything. Small country like Netherlands, Dutch, they will do. There's enough business.
Value.
They won't do it here. Big country, enough people, not enough revenue. So we have to get it done. I don't know, ICICI could do it. Well, of course, it's laughable now, but if you think about it, Facebook is a social network that releases frameworks for building mobile apps. Why? OpenStack came out of, again, people running data centers where they had no business of doing all that. So why not when we say that tomorrow we need an API? And I was reading about India platform or Digital India platform, which was again based on Aadhaar and had eKYC built on it. It's already there. I mean, our Mr. Amitabh Kant, he already did talk about it. It's already there, so you can actually go on to Digital India or something. It's now being positioned as a platform. In fact, I also subscribe to this government data set. So they're even making the Indian government data sets available for analysis. So whatever insights you can bring. So with that, we'll have to do the job ourselves. Globally, global languages we'll get support from, but the good thing is the tools will evolve, the technologies will evolve, machine learning is already at a stage where English is being tested. It's up to us to at least start testing. And if we don't do it, nobody else will, frankly.
Fantastic. So with that, I throw the floor open to you, ladies and gentlemen. Be advised that anyone who asks a difficult question which the five of us cannot answer will have to pay the bill for today's event.
Because Abhishek's entire stack of money was invalidated 2 days ago. Come on, someone, anyone. Yes, thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Astik. I just want to share my thoughts on UI UX, the role of UI UX. The gentleman said that the primary role is to make it more beautiful, which I kind of in a way disagree, because especially in the areas which you described, in a scenario where wife is beating her husband or something, and at that time if that lady has to make a call or use any application, how simple or easy we can make it for that lady to use it, rather than that app to work itself. Like for example, if I were to run out of this door, okay, I know this door works, but I know which way it opens. Whether it opens outside, whether it opens inside, I don't know, and especially somebody is beating me. So it will help me if somebody puts a sign saying that it opens outwards. So it helps me exit faster. So that's the role of UI or UX in that sense. To enhance the functionality, the usability. So that it's not only making it beautified so hence in every part of life, I think it's critical, not just on the software, but also in the day-to-day life, the way we walk on the roads, the way road signs are designed, all of that. So in that sense, UI UX is far larger in terms of what it can do to our day-to-day lives. That's my thought.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sorry, it's my mistake. I did not articulate that correctly. It came out as if I was seeking to make the app look better. Actually, you're absolutely right. What I was getting at was that the functionality has been so simple and so quick that in the event of panic, so they've come up with this new design called the Lal Bindi, which actually ladies can identify with. So the panic button becomes a big red button in the center of the smartphone screen, and all she has to do is long press that for 10-11 seconds to immediately get access to the dial 100, and that's working extremely well. But unfortunately, again, because of the literacy challenges, there are people who press that and keep it pressed by mistake. So that's using up a valuable call center resource for 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds, which could then be used for a person who generally knows Hindi. So you're absolutely right. It's functional use and functional elements other than beauty. So I apologize for that. Yes.
just to add about the usability and the design. Usually at the time of panic, we tend to look out for our phones, but may not be in our specific range. I feel technologies like the man said that about the speech, in fact when you share about the speech, I feel when you have functionality like OK Google and the phone gets activated. At the time of trouble, if a lady is getting assaulted or some scenario, if she screams out, help, help, and if that same speech modulation is there in my phone, the phone should send out an alert to a particular center. I think that would work really well, because if you have been assaulted, the other person wouldn't let you go grab your phone. I think, that would work really well.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a great point. In fact, we came up with that. We asked TCS whether that was possible. The issue is that for the phone to remain in listen mode the whole time for a total shriek, basically a shriek will turn off.
Decibel maybe.
Yeah, and maybe at a very high decibel level. Unfortunately, the battery consumption becomes very high, because you'll have to keep sampling the audio waves coming out of the mic. So the battery consumption becomes dramatically high. That was a problem. But one of the options that TCS did come up with was this feature might be activated only when the person leaves their home or leaves their work, and you can use analytics to determine that when I'm in office and when I'm not in office, etc. And you can use that. But unfortunately, as you saw, the Government of India failed to mandate a panic button key on non-smartphones in this country. The lobby of phone manufacturers is extremely strong, and even worse than that, the chipset guys, and this is a hardware argument. Abhishek was saying I'm the only guy who speaks hardware here. It's a hardware argument. So you only have Qualcomm, which is the big daddy, and then you have MediaTek, which is the smaller puppy, and then you have one more. But that's the problem. When you come down to hardware, it's only three. So the three of them get together and say, look, this is not worth it. I'm not spending the money to develop this. Then you're locked out of the market. So on the hardware, while on the software and application side, the markets exploded and it was spoiled for choice. The hardware side is gone the other way. And that's actually very bad news for the world. And more has to be done to encourage more hardware manufacturing and more hardware manufacturing in India. Absolutely. No one wants to go home. So you're not buying things. That's the problem. Shall we wind up there? Great. So my profound thanks to you and for a very interesting session. I certainly learned a lot. I think some people will come back there, but it's mostly fast asleep. But thank you very much. It's been a wonderful audience. We've not had anything pelted at us yet. So that's good news, and we'll quit while we're ahead. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Gautam, thank you for moderating the lovely session and sharing your experiences across. A big thank you to Lalit, Akshay, Matra and Abhishek. A big thanks to the audience. Thank you for being patient and staying with us for the entire evening. Good conversation that we had right from the starting with and the superheroes that we had from Aaron, Dr. Ganesh, Devesh. That was a very nice contribution that we had from the teams. Good panel discussion, good insights from customers from Himalaya. I think overall the entire session has been a nice, very nice learning session for all of us. I think sharing of knowledge is definitely something that kind of encourages and increases the overall knowledge quotient. So a big thanks again. Just like you to give your feedback forms and please collect your memento. So there's a small memento that's there from Activity Tilrik. This is the first event that Progress Tilrik Activity has actually had in the country, and I think your participation will encourage them to have these events more regularly, more knowledge sharing of information, more interaction as principals who kind of come into the country and started interacting. I think this has been a great first event. Thank you everyone, and thank you the Tilrik team, Abhishek, Payal, Dr. Ganesh, Devesh, Akshay, Avinash, Karan, Varun, and so on. Thank you.
see.